So Bitcoin, right? It was pitched as this totally revolutionary new financial system. But if you've ever actually tried to use it, you've probably noticed something. It can be surprisingly slow. So what's the deal? Well, let's unpack the big bottleneck that's right at the heart of Bitcoin.
I mean, you'd think this futuristic digital currency would be, instant, right? You can tap your credit card and you're out the door in a second. But a Bitcoin transaction, sometimes it feels like it takes forever. So what's the holdup? Well, here's the thing. It's not a bug. It's actually a fundamental part of its design, and that design has created one of the biggest challenges in the entire crypto world.
Okay, the easiest way to wrap your head around this whole thing, imagine the Bitcoin network is like a giant global highway system. And right now, that highway is stuck in one heck of a traffic jam. This whole highway idea, that's going to be our guide as we figure out what's causing this jam and what people are doing to try and fix it.
All right, let's dive right into the heart of the issue, the big bottleneck itself. What is actually causing all this digital gridlock?
So the official name for this whole mess is the Bitcoin scalability problem. And really, the core issue is that the network, by its very design, has this really limited capacity to handle a huge volume of transactions quickly. It just wasn't built to handle the kind of traffic a global system needs, not from day one. And it all boils down to two key limits. First up, you've got the block size. Think of this as the number of lanes on our highway. Each block of transactions is capped at just 1 megabyte. That's not a lot of lanes. Then you have the block time. This is basically the speed limit. A new block only gets added to the chain every 10 minutes on average. So it doesn't matter how many transactions are waiting in line, the traffic only moves forward at this slow, steady pace.
So you take those two things, a tiny road and a really slow speed limit, and what do you end up with? Well, this number. Bitcoin can only handle, at its absolute maximum, somewhere between about 3 and 7 transactions per second. And that's for the entire planet. Just to give you some perspective, Visa processes thousands of transactions every single second. Now you can really see the bottleneck, right?
And this is what it means for you, the average user. When that digital highway gets jammed, two things happen. One, you get long wait times. Your transaction is literally stuck in traffic. And two, if you want to get through faster, you have to pay a bigger toll, or in Bitcoin's world, a higher transaction fee. And that's why buying something small, like a coffee, with Bitcoin can be so slow and, frankly, pretty expensive.
Okay, so the crypto community has known about this problem for a long time, and they've been racing to come up with solutions. The first big idea isn't about, tearing down the whole highway and starting over. It's about making the traffic that's already on the highway flow a whole lot smarter.
The thinking here is pretty simple, really. If you can't add more lanes to the road, how can you squeeze more cars into the lanes you've already got? This is all about on-chain efficiency. Basically, it's about optimizing the data so that every single transaction takes up less room.
And they've come up with some really clever engineering tricks to do it. You see things like Schnorr signatures and signature aggregation. You can think of those like creating a carpool system. Multiple signatures can all ride together in one vehicle, which saves a ton of space. Mast is another trick that does something similar for more complicated transactions. These are all technical, kind of under-the-hood fixes, but they make the whole system run better.
But what if you didn't have to deal with the main highway at all? What if you could just bypass it? Well, that's the whole idea behind Layer 2 systems. These are protocols built right on top of Bitcoin. The best way to picture it is like building a brand new express overpass that flies right over the congested highway down below.
And the most famous Layer 2 system is, by far, the Lightning Network. So here's how this overpass ideal works in practice. First, two people open a channel. That's kind of like the on-ramp. That one transaction gets recorded on the main Bitcoin highway. But then, once they're up on the Lightning overpass, they can send a ton of instant super cheap payments back and forth to each other. When they're all done, they close the channel. That's the off-ramp. And only the final balance gets settled back down on the main highway. So you have one transaction to get on, one to get off, but all the crazy back and forth happens up on the express lane.
And this isn't just some crazy idea on a whiteboard. The Lightning Network is actually being used out in the real world. In fact, it was a big deal in a project called Bitcoin Beach, and its success there was one of the key reasons the government of El Salvador actually went ahead and made Bitcoin legal tender. They even gave their citizens a wallet that uses this very same technology.
All right, so that's solution number one. But not everyone thinks these clever tricks and fancy overpasses are the real answer. There's another school of thought. One that's a lot more direct and a whole lot more controversial.
The argument here is pretty straightforward. If the highway only has a couple of lanes, why not just build more lanes? It's that simple. In the Bitcoin world, that means just increasing that 1 megabyte block size limit. I mean, it seems like the most obvious fix, doesn't it? More space in each block, more transactions every 10 minutes. Boom, problem solved. Or is it?
Yeah, it wasn't nearly that simple. This seemingly obvious idea actually kicked off what's now known as an ideological battle over Bitcoin's future. It completely split the community. It created this deep philosophical divide about what Bitcoin even is and what it's supposed to become.
And that battle? Well, it led to different groups literally taking the code and splitting off to create their own versions of Bitcoin. Each one had a totally different idea for the highway design. You've got the original Bitcoin, BTC, which stuck with the small blocks and focused on those layer 2 overpasses. Then you got Bitcoin Cash, BCH, which just widened the highway to a whopping 32 megabytes. Litecoin went a different route. They just made the speed limit 4 times faster. And then there's Bitcoin SV, which just went for it and said, let's have unlimited lanes. They removed the block size limit altogether.
So this really gets us to the core of the whole conflict. You see, this isn't just some nerdy technical debate between engineers. This is a fundamental disagreement about the soul of the network.
And believe me, this has been raging for years. We're talking about the block size wars. It kicked off with early proposals back in 2015, led to attempted compromises in 2016, and then in 2017, there was this super high stakes, really contentious proposal for a split that got called off at the very last minute. The whole community was really pushed to its breaking point.
And this really breaks down the two sides of the argument perfectly. On one side, you have the keep blocks small camp. For them, decentralization is everything. Their main goal is to make sure anyone, anywhere in the world, can run a full Bitcoin node on just a regular home computer. That keeps the network spread out and strong. They think Layer 2 solutions are the only way to scale. But on the other side, you have the increase block size camp. They care most about on-chain throughput. Their goal is a network that can handle a massive number of transactions right on the main highway, which would keep fees super low for everybody.
So it all comes down to this one fundamental choice, and our highway analogy just captures it perfectly. Do you keep the original road small and decentralized and then build a bunch of high-speed overpasses for all the daily traffic? Or do you just pave a massive multi-lane superhighway that's designed to handle every single car right there on the main road?
And that is the big question that's going to define Bitcoin's entire future. Can it actually scale up to be a global payment system that everyone can use without giving up the very decentralization that made it so revolutionary in the first place? You know, there's no easy answer here. And as these two competing philosophies keep building out their very different highways, the network's next turn, well, that's still very much being debated.